Today, American Express reporting earnings, revenue falling last quarter, but its net income rose. What happened? Bitcoin dropping to its lowest level since last month and taking the crypto market with it. And crypto chaos in Turkey. The CEO of an exchange flees the country and might have taken billions of dollars with him. That and much more coming up at NTD Business. Good evening and great to have you with us as U.S. factory activity powers ahead, but manufacturers struggle to source raw materials and other inputs this month, so momentum could slow. Data firm IHS Markit's manufacturing index rising to the highest number in 14 years. But labor and supply shortages are boosting costs. Prices paid by manufacturers also jumping to the highest level since July 2008. Manufacturing accounts for roughly 12% of the U.S. economy. And data Friday shows new single-family home sales went up over 20% in March. Sales were mostly for the $200,000 to $400,000 range, only 3% from the lower range segment, those under $200,000. And stocks rallying on Friday, driving the S&P 500 to a near-record closing high again. The Dow rising 228 points, 0.67%, S&P 500 gaining 45 points, is about 1/10%, the Nasdaq adding nearly 200 points, almost 1.5%. All 11 major indexes or sectors were higher, with technology, financials leading the gains. More earnings to come next week as well, including tech heavyweights Microsoft, Alphabet, Apple, Facebook. Refinitiv expects first quarter earnings to jump almost 34% from a year ago. What a year. And Bitcoin inching slightly above $50,000 today after dropping to its lowest price in nearly a month. It sunk and the entire crypto market went with it. NTD's Phil Zhou has the story.
Bitcoin drops to under $50,000 for the first time since March. It sunk as much as 20% in the past week, from around $60,000 to as low as $48,000.
Bitcoin drops, everyone drops.
There's a sea of red across the crypto market. Most cryptocurrencies are down. The entire crypto market cap dropped around 7% in the past day alone.
Well, I think what we're seeing is profit taking on a massive scale.
One expert says prices are too high and people are cashing in.
Cryptocurrencies are starting to look more and more, which I've always thought, like a bubble.
But he says that's how the market matures. Once the bubble pops, it doesn't mean crypto will disappear forever.
That the Coinbase IPO makes it very clear that I think the market's going to stay, that exchanges are going to be profitable and they're going to last.
One expert says President Biden's plan to raise the capital gains tax is not the reason for the drop.
A lot of it's very small, on the ground, in the market stuff, like someone dumps a lot of Bitcoin because they're trying to win a margin bet, or a coal mine catches fire and power goes off where all the Bitcoin mines are.
Gerard says it's usually small events that affects the price. Big events don't play a big role.
It's very small scale stuff, and that's why the number goes up and down so wildly.
He says crypto is like gambling instead of investing.
Unless you really know your stuff, it's just gambling. And that might be fun, but if you want to invest in it, you'd better be really, really good and know your stuff, or you're likely to lose your shirt. You might win big, but you probably won't.
Bitcoin is currently back up over $50,000. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
Media reports in Turkey say the owner of one of the country's biggest crypto exchanges has left the country with $2 billion of customer funds. The exchange is called Thodex and its website is still down today, citing an abnormal fluctuation in the company's accounts. The Turkish government recently banned using cryptocurrencies to buy and sell things, saying it opens the door for pyramid schemes. The head of capital markets at Swiss Finance Corporation and Turkish national Mohammed Demir says the ban caused a run on the exchange that it couldn't handle.
And they couldn't just make money anymore, and they just couldn't afford it. And the guy, he said that he was scared that he either had to commit suicide or he had to be, taken into custody. So he just literally fled the country.
The CEO is reportedly now in Albania, but he denies cheating his clients, saying he's just meeting with some potential investors and will be back soon. But users still can't access their crypto.
That's the problem with cryptocurrencies. Who regulates it? No one. Where is the money? It's in some kind of bank account, right? But all you have is wallets of cryptocurrencies in your account in the exchange.
And to make things worse, some say Turks were using crypto to protect their savings from crippling inflation. It's up 16% in Turkey this year. But Demir says that's not the case. He thinks it's purely speculation.
Literally linked to US dollars. If I wanted to hedge myself against inflation, which is, in line and in high correlation with the dollar Turkish lira parity, I would just go and buy dollars. Why would I just go and buy Bitcoin?
Turkish state media say that 62 people have been detained and an international warrant is out for the CEO's arrest. We'll keep you updated. And earnings keep trickling in. Snapchat parent Snap with stronger than expected user growth and revenue growth. Daily active users up 22% from last year. The good news pushing stocks higher today. Snapchat's been tinkering with its Android app and that's attracted more users last quarter. For the first time, it now has more Android users than Apple. It's also investing in new technology, including augmented reality. It's hoping brands can use these new tools to promote products like clothes and makeup to their tech-savvy users. And so far, the advertisers are responding. Total revenue, which comes mostly from ads, is up 66% last quarter. American Express saw its net income rise over 50% last quarter, but its revenue actually fell. The net income figure was helped by the bank releasing reserves it had put aside for bad loans. NTD's Jasmina Davis has the details.
American Express exceeded quarterly profit estimates Friday, releasing over $1 billion in credit loss reserves. The money was set aside to cover potential loan losses during the pandemic. Now it goes to net income. Amex claims they did this because of improvements in the macroeconomic outlook.
Our original scenario 1, or low scenario, assumed a much worse medical and economic environment this year and that we would not release any credit reserves in the year.
Without the reserve release boosting income, revenues actually fell 3% over the prior quarter, causing the stock to fall. CEO Stephen Squeri sees 2021 as a transition year, focusing on meaningful progress in 4 areas. Spending volumes coming back to pre-pandemic levels, bringing new customers into the franchise, retaining and deepening relationships with current customers, and signing up additional merchants.
We're making good progress in all these areas. Our focus is on investing to rebuild growth momentum by firing up our core business, scaling next horizon opportunities, while continuing to retain financial flexibility.
American Express sees China as an exciting opportunity, prioritizing its card processing network in mainland China. It's pleased with its progress.
Since getting the green light to start processing payments in China 8 months ago, we have reached mobile wallet parity coverage through our partnerships with China's major mobile wallet providers. And to date, we have added over 14 million merchants to the network at the point of sale, with more to come.
The outlook for card companies improves as the economy reopens. Net income rose to $2.74 per share from 41 cents per share a year earlier, beating analysts' estimates. Jasmina Davis, NTD News.
As they say in the UK, don't mess with the beautiful game. JP Morgan says it regrets ever getting involved with Europe's breakaway soccer Super League, which threw the sport into civil war this week. The bank was set to fund the effort with a $4 billion grant that would have been shared by the 12 founding clubs, including Barcelona, Manchester United, and other top names as well. But within 48 hours of being announced, the plan collapsed. Fan protests and even national governments helping force one club after another to pull out. Critics said the Super League was a closed shop, open to only a few elite sides. Soccer, they say, is for everyone. JP Morgan says it clearly misjudged how this deal would be viewed by the wider soccer community, and it promises to learn from its experience. But fans aren't as forgiving. They've taken to Twitter to call for a boycott of the company, and a rating agency downgraded the bank's corporate sustainability rating. What a saga. And Panasonic will make its biggest acquisition in a decade, buying supply chain software company Blue Yonder in a deal worth over $7 billion. It bought a 20% stake in the company last year. Now it wants the rest of it. Panasonic says the pandemic has increased the need for more intelligent and autonomous supply chains. Buying Blue Yonder will help it benefit from companies wanting to test their tolerance to disruption. Panasonic is better known for its consumer electronics and appliances, but in recent years it's focusing more on its business-to-business market. And aviation leaders are weighing in on the vaccine passport debate. They say it could help people feel better about flying again, but that it should be voluntary. NTD's Phil Zoe reports.
Passengers who want to travel should not have to show proof that they received a COVID-19 vaccine. That's what aviation leaders told lawmakers at a Senate hearing this week. The president of an International Flight Attendants Association says a vaccine passport can be helpful to regain confidence in air travel, but it must be temporary.
It must be focused on COVID-19. It must be voluntary. And we just need to make sure that this is not a mandatory program that keeps certain people from being able to access air travel.
Her organization represents nearly 50,000 flight attendants at 17 airlines. The president and CEO of Airlines for America also says it's important to keep the vaccine passport voluntary.
Like Sarah said, this needs to be a voluntary program. It needs to be time limited. But if for someone who travels a lot, like I do, it could be a great convenience and ease my way of travel.
The U.S. airline industry was hit hard by the pandemic, $35 billion in net losses in 2020. Demand for air travel has been on the rise for several months, but still isn't near the pre-pandemic level. Texas Senator Ted Cruz says he's concerned about passengers' data privacy and security.
Concerns have grown throughout the pandemic related to privacy, data security, disclosure of medical records, and what the permissible uses of confidential health information are. And I strongly believe that we need to endeavor to address these before we find ourselves in the midst of another crisis.
His state of Texas banned government-mandated vaccine passports. At least 7 other states have proposed similar bans on vaccine passports, but several other states welcome a verification program. New York launched its digital app a month ago. California and Hawaii are also launching some variation of a vaccine passport. Phil Zoe, NTD News.
And pack your bags because United Airlines is adding more than 480 daily flights to its U.S. schedule in June. It's getting ready to meet summer travel demand. Airlines are seeing more bookings after months of pandemic-linked restrictions, and a United director says more flights will go to national parks, Florida, and destinations popular with leisure travelers. The company said it plans to fly 2/3 of its pre-pandemic domestic schedule and 60% of its overall schedule. Getting back to normal. With the recent flurry of spending proposals, we take a step back to assess the United States' financial health. NTD's Christina Kim speaks to the head of a transparency watchdog to discuss the national debt and what it could mean for the average American.
The Treasury Department estimates America's national debt to be $28 trillion. But a report from Truth in Accounting estimates the true value to be over $123 trillion. That's because the two groups count different things as debt. Adam Andrzejewski is the founder and CEO of the nonprofit OpenTheBooks.com, which tracks all government spending. He says the $28 trillion is real-time debt, while the $123 trillion figure is more of a long-term bird's-eye view.
The benefit of the Truth in Accounting report is that it details how politicians are conferring benefits that aren't funded and actually have no hope of ever being funded. The reason politicians do this is to get reelected.
He said both Republicans and Democrats contributed to the ballooning debt, but it's not getting any better.
It's our children and our children's children that are going to have to pay it back.
For example, President Biden proposed $6 trillion in spending within his first 100 days in office. Andrzejewski says the U.S. has never seen anything like this in its whole history. And he says there's a lot of wasteful spending in the bills that are proposed.
The CARES Act a year ago provided $80 billion for our nation's schools. It was so much money they couldn't even spend $10 billion of it. And then a month ago, the American Rescue Act provided in one fell swoop another $128 billion for K through 12 schools. And the Congressional Budget Office says that 1/3 of that won't even be spent till after the next election. But then in Biden's infrastructure bill, he wants to provide another $100 billion for K through 12 schools. This is crazy.
He outlines 3 ways the growing national debt is likely to impact Americans.
The first thing is that everything you own today will be worth less. The money in the bank, your house, and that's because they've printed a bunch of money and devalued the value of your assets in real time.
Second, he says the cost of goods will be much more expensive. And third, he says taxes will go up, threatening Americans' prosperity in the future. Andrzejewski encourages people to educate themselves, speak up, and hold politicians accountable. He says at minimum, politicians should be given the time to read every page of a spending bill and publish the bills online so people can take a look before any vote is cast. Christina Kim, NTD News.
And Australia is cancelling 2 state-level deals with China over national security concerns. Under new laws, the federal government can now veto international deals that states make if they go against the national interest. NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison says the country is cancelling 2 Belt and Road infrastructure projects with China.
And the Foreign Relations Act that our government put in place was designed to protect our national interest by ensuring that there were no other agreements entered into by any other level of government that would conflict with Australia's national interest. And so what we've done is we've followed through.
Victoria State agreed to the China projects in 2018 and 2019. States now have to consult the foreign minister before signing agreements with other nations. A US State Department spokesman says Australia is on the front lines of Beijing's coercive diplomacy.
We continue to stand with the people of Australia as they bear the brunt of the PRC's coercive behavior.
China's foreign ministry spokesperson says Australia should immediately correct mistakes and change course, and not to go further on the wrong path.
Still to come. NASA and SpaceX send 4 astronauts on a journey to the International Space Station. It's the first time NASA is reusing a SpaceX capsule to carry astronauts. And vintage fashion enjoys a revival, luxury items seeing increasing demand online. Find out what's driving it after a short break.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy, for an immediate cash payment. Call Coventry Direct to learn more.
We thought we had planned carefully for our retirement.
But we quickly realized we needed a way to supplement our income.
Our friends sold their policy to help pay their medical bills. And that got me thinking. Maybe selling our policy could help with our retirement.
I was skeptical. So I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let your policy lapse without finding out what it's worth. Visit CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies, or call 1-800-509-8500. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
%90 of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Four astronauts are on their way to the International Space Station aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft. The Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from Kennedy Space Center early Friday morning.
3, 2, 1, 0. Mission and liftoff. Godspeed, Endeavour.
This is the first time they've reused a SpaceX capsule to carry astronauts. The Endeavour capsule took 2 astronauts to the space station in May, and reusing parts is a cornerstone of SpaceX's business plan to drive down the cost of spaceflight. The company's reused parts dozens of times to launch satellites and other cargo, but this is the first time they've been used on a crewed mission. The 4 astronauts will spend 6 months on ISS studying living models of human organs. Spooky. And the pandemic has hit retail hard over the past year, but auctioneers of luxury fashion items say their sales are exploding online. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Art Curiel's auction house overlooks the shuttered boutiques of Champs-Élysées Avenue in Paris. Here, vintage fashion expert Clara Vivienne oversees the online sale of hundreds of Chanel jackets, shoes, and accessories. Paris may be the world's fashion capital, but a third pandemic lockdown is once again sending lovers of luxury who have time to spare and money to spend online.
I think because people have time to spend at home to find out the value of what they have and if they could sell it, or on the other hand, to buy items, which is another means of consumption, people can't walk into luxury boutiques, and so they shop at online auctions.
Vintage was already enjoying a revival, and handbags sell particularly well. Auctioneer Antoine Saunier said vintage fashion sales are exploding online.
For a sale that we used to have around 100 subscribers 2 years ago, we can have 5 or 10 times this number sometimes, depending on the kind of sales. It's totally different. It's an explosion of sales online.
He says for the past year, there hasn't been a physical fashion week, but that's not stopping them.
Paris remains the capital of fashion. There's no doubt about it. And with our exhibitions for auctions, it's maybe the only fashion exhibition at the moment. It's our job to do our little fashion week through our sales.
He says his auction house is preparing to sell nearly 600 Vuitton artifacts for its little fashion week. Traditional catwalk shows are still not permitted. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Are you adventurous but frugal when it comes to food? Well, guess what? There's an app for that. The Too Good To Go app connects customers hungry for discounted grub with restaurants that have extra. You just place an order at a participating business and pick up a mystery bag of food. It usually costs between $4 and $6. The catch is that you get whatever is available, meaning leftover and not eaten from that day. You could end up with bagels and pastries or a full-blown fajita bowl. The app was founded in 2016. The idea is to cut down on food waste. And bankruptcy is threatening local Parisian shops more than ever. They've been hit especially hard by restrictive measures that prevent tourists from entering the country. NTD's French correspondent David Vivez interviews the owner of a well-loved sweet shop.
At 84 years old, Denise Acabo feels full of energy when she works in her shop of 45 years. Here she sells fine chocolates and premium candy. The treats come from all across France, like this chocolate clementine from Corse Island.
When you put it in your mouth, you have to roll it around inside. If you gobble it down in a few seconds, I'm not selling it to you.
Everyone from French presidents to American actors have visited her shop, but the tourists are the most important customers. Tourism is a top economy activity in France, but since the first lockdown last year, many businesses are going bankrupt.
Last year, during the first lockdown, I was earning like €6 a day. One day I got 30 euros. That was a good day. I was just sinking, crying every evening.
The fate of Acabo's shop is uncertain. She's already 2 months late on her rent, and her daughter is pressing her to sell the shop. But she's keeping faith, and her routine goes on. She tells the stories behind the candies to every client, and believes one day American tourists will be back.
The American tourists used to empty my shelves of Cousins de Lyon. They loved it so much.
You have Cousins de Lyon? Yes, I have Cousins de Lyon.
Acabo decorates her shop with presents from visitors. Paris residents also come to comfort her, knowing she needs support.
I come regularly. I like chocolate, and it seems this place has a soul. I feel good when I'm here.
She says the lockdown has changed the face of the French capital.
These are very, very hard times. A lot of shop owners have sold their shops. Something is changing in Paris. I try to tell myself, just live each day as it is. We don't know what's going on.
Some of the restrictive measures will be lifted on May 7th. For Akabo, it's one step closer to the day tourists will return. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Not easy. As the latest business updates for this week, in fact, you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox. That starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, it's the last of the week. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.